Hi, I'm Kim Allen, and welcome to the reLeading podcast. This is where you come to meet people like my great guest today, where you might want to be anywhere in your life or along your journey, whether that's your career journey or your personal journey. And you might want to pause because you want to do something different, but you may not know what it is or how to do it. So, this is where you come to pause and pivot in a different direction and proceed with purpose, because that's really the win. That's when we know that change is actually good in our life. So the reason why I really believe in this, I've dedicated my career to it to the degree where I actually wrote 2 books about this. And my first one I'm going to show you. This is reLead, and this is about leadership effectiveness. So this book is really about you. So picture yourself in a room or on a stage, if you will, okay? And the spotlight is over you. It's all about you, how you can be motivated or inspired on how to be more effective in your life. And again, that's professionally and personally. So my most recent book that's published is called Re-Engage. And this book, it's all about how we engage with other people, how we show up. It's so important because, again, if we're on the stage, if we're talking to other people, we already know a lot of the training and development is always about us, right? But we really have to turn on those house lights to know information and to see our audience. And that's what Re-Engage is about. So that's really the whole point of this podcast. And also I bring on really special people. And today's even more important. She's a really special guest. And I want to have a very warm welcome to Michelle Bravo. Hi, Michelle. How are you today?
Hi, Kim. I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay. So this is going to be a little bit of a different podcast for me. Just to let you know that Michelle is, she's a nurse, she's a Reiki practitioner, and she's also a yoga instructor. And that's not even telling the whole story. So typically what I do is I read the bios and start to tell the story a little bit of my special guest. But this situation and this story is so unique. I'm actually just going to have Michelle explain her background, which actually is her bio. And Michelle, you and I have talked about this recently. I think probably the best place for you to start is your first time in nursing school.
Yeah. So yes, I started nursing school when I first went to college and I failed out. And at that point, I wasn't focused, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. Like I knew I liked nursing, but I just needed to pick something, and that's what I did. And so after failing out, I worked as a waitress at Red Lobster for probably too many years until I figured out what I wanted to do. And what I realized is that I wanted to go back for nursing, which was scary because I had failed at it and I was a perfectionist. So for me, it was like, if I can't do something perfectly, I don't want to do it at all. And so I decided to enter into the hospital world and do my research because I was a perfectionist. I was like, let me work as a nursing assistant and see if this is really what I'm going to proceed with doing. Mm-hmm. And after I did that, I did decide to go back into nursing school. And then I ended up, because I was focused and passionate about it, I ended up graduating top of my nursing class while working full time, which is like wild. I think I drank way too much coffee back then, but I did it, right? I succeeded at what I wanted to do, and I became a pediatric ER nurse after nursing school. And I thought that that was like the end of my story, right? I was like, okay, like I did it, I achieved it, and now I'm happy, and here's happily ever after. Until I had my children. And then once I had my children, when I had my son, I went through a very difficult time with feeding him. And it wasn't until I met a lactation consultant that things started to turn around for us, because it started getting really hard really quick. And I started going into a really dark place. And after meeting her, she helped me to figure out my path with my feeding journey with my son. And from that, I took that obstacle and turned it into an opportunity for growth, right? I paused, I pivoted, and proceeded with purpose. And so now I'm a lactation consultant. I work in the hospital, and I had my own company with lactation. It was actually a franchise. It was called the Mama Coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that this was like, again, my end game. Like, this is what I want to do, right? And I'm like, I'm going to stay right here doing this, and I'm going to be so happy helping all of these moms in their journey. And then what I realized during this journey was that, yes, I was really good at it and I loved it. But then I realized what my superpower was. And that's the thing with failure and obstacles and the universe showing you what is meant for you, is that things pop up and you're like, oh, wow. And so Deepak Chopra actually talks about this in his 7 spiritual laws of success. And he talks about how we all have this one unique superpower. And the only job we have is to find it and to share that with the rest of humanity. After that, everything else flows. And I was like, how do I do that? When I read that, I was like, how do I do that? But then when having my own company and it becoming successful, I realized I like this, but my superpower is actually my sensitivity. And I say that because I've always been very sensitive, very quiet and observant. And a lot of times people will mistake that for being dramatic, for being quiet. And why are you so shy? That's what people always used to say to me. Why are you so shy? Why are you growing up? That was the question of the day, always. And in my mind, I would be like, why are you so loud? Like, why do you talk so much? And it was always seen as a negative thing. So I always kind of tried to brush it underneath the carpet and then have that perfect exterior. And I really try to be more extroverted rather than introverted. And what I've realized in this journey with my company and having to leave that company behind, and also with yoga, Reiki, and sound healing, is that that's what my superpower is, the sensitivity. Because even with lactation, being quiet, observant, I'm able to notice details that other people don't. And I do that through active listening, not just verbally, but more importantly, non-verbally. Because nonverbal communication is 80% of communication, right? People focus so much on the verbal language, but if you look at someone's body, you can see incongruencies with what they're saying and what their body is telling you. And the body keeps score. That's actually a book by Eckhart Tolle, and amazing read. And so with lactation, I'll listen to the mom. I ask a million questions. I want to know everything about their life, right? I want to know every single detail. Where do you live? How do you work? Like, and people must think like, why is she asking me all of these wild questions? Like, who's your support system? This, that. And the reason why I'm asking all of those things is because I'm seeing how you're responding verbally and what you're saying nonverbal. And so what I'll do is, after gathering all the information and listening to what you're telling me, I'll give you 2 options. One option is, okay, here's what you're telling me you want, and this is the path you can take to get there. Or this is what you're not saying, and this is another path that you can take. And I would say like 90% of the time, people go with the nonverbal.
Wow.
Path. And it's really powerful to see. And that's really how I learned, like, wow, I have this ability to see this nonverbal communication. And it really helps to transform lives, because I think sometimes people feel that sometimes you just need someone to tell you, like, it's okay to be yourself, right? You don't have to fit into the mold. And it's actually really good to express your unique expression. And when you do that, you can align with who you are and shine your light to the rest of the world. And so that's where I'm at now. And I teach yoga, Reiki, and sound healing, and all of those things. I have so much gratitude for those practices, because it's really helped me come into myself and realize who I am and my special gift and what I want to share with the world.
Okay. I have to put on a seatbelt listening to you, because there's so much to unpack here. Well, first of all, that's not your whole story. I know that, audience. I'm so excited because there's more. But okay, so a couple things. I'm not going to go in. I'm just looking at my notes right now. So I'm just going to actually follow this, because as I was looking at you, I was taking copious note. I'm a note taker. and a lot of questions about what, and because I'm curious like you, right? All right. So you're a pediatric ER nurse and you're a Reiki practitioner and yoga instructor. So I just want to ask you questions. What is a Reiki practitioner? And also the audience may want to know, and also your yoga instructor. And I know I've seen you on social media. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So audience, this is real life using StreamYard, which is my platform, and I hate it. Okay. So eventually I'm going to be using someone else, but for some reason my internet just went out, but that's real world and I'm back. So that's all that matters. Okay. So your yoga instruction, I've seen you on social media, and do you do the hot yoga?
I do, yes. Hot power vinyasa yoga.
Okay, so Reiki, explain what that is, and also so maybe you can talk about that. So
Okay.
I'm not a yoga person, but I'm curious about it.
Yeah. So actually working as a pediatric emergency room nurse, which I no longer do, I do work for a pediatrician per diem, but I I actually got into yoga and Reiki from my experience in the pediatric emergency room. And the thing was is that I was climbing up the clinical ladder in the pediatric emergency room, and I on my resume like doing amazing, right? And I thought maybe I'd go up to like chief nursing officer, like, and that would be my end game. Okay. Then I started getting really burnt out. And I didn't like who I was becoming. I was trying again to maintain that perfectionist view, like trying to fit the mold, and it just wasn't working. So I was like, I've always been an active person. Like movement has always been medicine for me. Like I have to move, whether it's dance, sports, whatever it is. And so I got a Groupon for yoga at the studio that I teach at now, Real Hot Yoga in Inglewood. I love it there. And after practicing for a couple of months, I saw that they had a yoga teacher training, and I'm like, I need to do this. I don't know why, but my intuition is something I got to do it. And so I did it, even though I wasn't good at it. I was terrible. And this was weird because I had never done anything that I was bad at. Like I would just leave. I would not go back. But what I love about yoga is that it incorporates mind, body, and spirit. And it really helps you to feel in order to heal, right? Like you have to feel what you're going through because we're all going through things. And if you feel those emotions, they're transient, right? So then you hold on to what works for you and then let go of what no longer serves you. And I always say that yoga was like kind of like my gateway drug into the rest of the energy world. And that's where Reiki came in. So Reiki was introduced to me by a close friend. Her name is Val. She's a wonderful woman. She's a Reiki practitioner. And I was a yoga instructor. We started talking about stuff. And I was like, you know what? I've always been curious about Reiki. I want to try it. And after my first session, I felt terrible for 3 days. But because all of these emotions that were repressed and down and away, covered with layers and layers of protection, were now starting to come up, right? And this is where I fell in love with Reiki, because after feeling terrible for 3 days, all of a sudden, all of this clarity started to come in. And Reiki, it's a simple hands-on or hovering energy healing technique. And essentially, the Reiki practitioner is a channel between the person and life force energy, because we're all made of energy and energy is interchangeable. And energy can get stuck. It can become overactive. It can become underactive. And we have several energy centers in our spine. They're called the chakras. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but they're essentially seven main energy centers within our body that when they are spinning in the same direction, because they're wheels, that's what the Sanskrit word chakra means, spinning wheel. And so when they spin at the frequency that they're supposed to spin at, then that's when you feel inner peace and tranquility. But every day, stress happens. Every day, different things, life events, negative thought patterns come into our life, and the different energy centers that are associated with different parts of our body, different emotions, different sounds, like they're associated with so many things. And so when they get out of whack, that's when you start feeling stressed and burnt out. And the whole goal of Reiki is to bring balance to those energy centers so that you can find inner peace, harmony, and tranquility. And once I started leaning into Reiki more, I started hearing people asking or telling me, Michelle, like, you're such a bright light. Like, you are such a beacon of light. Like, you just radiate, like, you're like vibrant. Or people will say to me, you have this inner peace about you. Like, how did you get there? And I'm like, it was a lot of work and it's a continuing journey. It never ends.
Right.
And I love it. And I've also incorporated sound healing into it because sound healing is a vibrational energy technique that really helps to also balance out the energy centers so that the sound of the energy centers is at the frequency they're supposed to be at. So all of these different ways really help to just turn the attention inward, introversion, right? Turn the attention inward, peel away the layers that no longer serve you, all those layers that we built to protect ourselves, to fit the mold, start taking them down. And once you start to take them down, then you get to the light, you get to that jewel, you get to the lotus, right? The lotus is a very common symbol in yoga, and it represents the yoga or spiritual journey. And essentially, the lotus is born in mud. And from mud, right, that's your failure, that's your obstacles. You have to work your way through them. You have to work the way up and remove those layers. And then every day it works to get up to the surface, to get to the light. So it goes from darkness to light. And once it comes to the surface of the water, it blossoms and it's untouched by the mud and the water. And they say that the jewel is within the lotus, and that's where the light is. The light is within, and it's a matter of not so much discovering yourself, but peeling away the layers that you built to protect yourself and to find that light again within you, that light from when you were a kid. It's your inner child. And what the world told you, wasn't right about you, no. That's your gift. That's your superpower. And that's why I love this work so much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So this is so interesting because in the corporate world, they talk so much about mindset, mental health, and you bring this completely different dimension into what everyone is talking about at the corporate level. We're going to get to that in a second. Wow. I'm making note to play this podcast over and over again because what you just gave us is a masterclass on how to do this. One thing I just wanted to bring up is something that I'm trying to think where I have my note that all right, give me a second because I wrote this down, that when you were young, I have it right here. That you were you did allude to this, but I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive. That you were quiet, that you were sensitive growing up, and these were your words, that you thought maybe something was wrong with you or bad with you, because people would say, "Why are you so quiet?" And you said your words that you never fit in, that you felt that you were too quiet, and you questioned yourself, "Why couldn't I be like everyone else?" And you were doing this as a child, and throughout your childhood, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, you talk about peeling off unnecessary layers. I can see why you did that for yourself because there's nothing wrong with you. You're amazing, right? But like you said, it's these layers that we all form around ourselves, by ourselves to protect us, right? And you didn't need protecting. It was the difference of you being an introvert versus being an extrovert, and other people who are extroverts saying, basically, you're not like us. Why aren't you like us? There's something wrong with you.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else did I write down? Again, just everything. I am hanging on your every word. This is so great. All right. So you talked about the mama coach. Very interesting at the very beginning, you talked again about going through, from the dark, that you felt that you were going through darkness. And this was not that long ago, that you might have thought that when you were young, but also in your personal life, not that long ago. How old is your oldest? Not quite 4, correct?
3.5. He's 3.5 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So right after I had him and I was having these feeding difficulties, I'm going to be vulnerable and have a lot of courage, because I have the courage of a lion.
Love that.
I am, and this is the hard part, right? Because there's always a lot of stigma. I had postpartum anxiety and depression. And that was the dark place. And, at that point, I could have taken 2 different paths. And the first one would have been, why is this happening to me? And play the victim. I also had to keep a baby alive, and he actually was almost failure to thrive. And so as a pediatric ER nurse and as a mother, I felt like I was failing at both. So I felt like I was failing as a mom, but I'm also failing as a pediatric ER nurse. What do I do for a living? I keep children alive. And here I am struggling to keep this newborn alive, right? And so instead of saying, why is this happening to me? I engaged in action. And I decided to say, what is this trying to teach me?
Yeah. Wow.
And from that, if you can do that with anything, with any obstacle, with any failure in your life, you can turn that obstacle into an opportunity for growth. Otherwise, you stay in your comfort zone and you stay stagnant. And for me, that's just not an option, like with anything. Sometimes it's a little exhausting, because I always say, like, I'm addicted to growth. Like, I need to keep growing. I need to keep failing. And actually, one of my favorite singers is Pitbull. He's a Cuban immigrant who, my mom is a Cuban immigrant, so I connect with him so much. But he actually has a quote that he says, there's no success without failure. There's no winning without losing. And in yoga, we talk about the yin yang and how for everything there's an opposite, right? There's a counterpart. And because without failure, how do you know what success is, right? And for anyone who is successful, and I think anyone who is successful can chime in on this, is people see the outcome. They see the success. They don't see the road you took to get there. They don't see the failures, the mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, then you're not going to you're not going to have innovation, right?
Right.
Like, you need to take those risks. Sometimes it's hard, because like with my company, having to let that go, because I had to honor who I was and align with what I wanted to do with my life, because I knew what my special gift was. It was really hard to let go of that. It's still hard. I mean, it was hard financially, emotionally, so many things, right?
Right.
But it was part of the learning process.
Right.
And once you start to honor that, and if companies can give room for people to take risks and make some mistakes, you can get so much more out of that than someone who is cookie cutter doing everything by the molds. You really can.
Right. Wow. This is just such an eye-opener. And I wrote this down. I mean, I actually write notes when my guests are talking, and I've taken so many notes. But what you said, that mistakes equals innovation. What? No one talks about that, right? It's exactly right, that when you make mistakes. But something that you talked about too is that you, Michelle Bravo, you engaged in action. Those are the operative words right there, right? So I'm looking at the camera now for everyone. When you're making mistakes, just like Michelle was talking about, right? You have a couple choices. You can do nothing, or you can take action, which means you have to engage.
And like you say, pause, pivot, and proceed with purpose, right? Like it's the same thing. It's just saying it in a different way.
Right. And after listening to you, I might start kindergarten again and do my life different. I don't know. You are so okay, but we're still not finished. Okay. I know that we're not really quite near time yet, but all right. So again, and I'm just going to say this, you've already said something toward this, that your greatest lessons in your path were because of failure. Your greatest lessons in your path were because of failure, right? And what you're doing is Yeah, and I wrote, and it's something, and I keep, you've said this, but it's worth repeating, Michelle, that when you're talking about tapping into your sensitivity, that we're all suffering through something. So true. And you said with ups or downs, you never know when a story inspires you or others, which again it's just so true. And that you also said that, yeah, a detour is leading you in a right direction. These are all quotes from Michelle Bravo, by the way. If anyone copies this, okay.
Just if you want to hear more of them, come to my yoga classes. I weave a theme throughout the class, and these are all the things that I speak about.
There you go. Okay, this is great. Okay, so I have to talk about this because this blew my mind. I love this. Okay, so if anyone here is in the corporate setting watching this and you're like, I'm not sure this is for me, this is so for you. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Michelle, can you just talk about Times Square?
Sure. So, that's what dreams are made of, right? And so I had an opportunity to actually host a corporate wellness workshop with Hilton in Times Square. And it was so much fun. And I actually was contacted by HR, Sarai Kahas, an amazing woman, amazing leader as well. And she asked me about doing this wellness workshop for her employees. And I was like, yes, like, let's do it now. And essentially what I did was I used my energy healing techniques of yoga, breath work, guided meditation, Reiki, sound healing to help bring inner peace to employees, to fill their cups so that everyone can get the overflow. And that's the whole thing, right? If you invest in your company, you invest in your people, you take care of your people, you fill their cup, your company's going to get the overflow. You allow them to make mistakes and build innovation from that, your company is going to transform. Your company is going to grow. If you don't invest in your people and you don't allow for risks and failure, then, I mean, if your company's doing well anyway, you might be okay with staying where you are and, staying stagnant in the comfort zone. But if you want to take your company to the top, you got to take the risks and you got to invest in your people. And, the employees had such a positive response, manager, HR, like everyone loved it so much. And it was such a blessing to be able to do that for them because, I mean, they are busy. They're in Times Square, right? They're in the heart of the world. And so to me, there's no one that needs it more than people that are in essentially fight or flight all the time, right? You're moving fast paced, super quick. And so to help bring them down into rest and digest, fill their cup so then they can be at their best for not just themselves, but everyone around them, for all of their clients, for everybody, and just shine their light. It's infectious when people start to shine their light. It truly is.
Michelle Bravo, I can say that you are, listening to your story, that you are a masterclass in failure and growth. And that is why this episode was called The Failure Coach. When I listen to you, I'm thinking, I know that you're a Reiki practitioner and that you're a nurse and that you do yoga. I see you as a coach because I heard you even saying that you were coaching mothers on lactation. You are coaching other people. And even though that other people may not look at it this way, I look at it that you're a failure coach. You are your own message, right? Yeah. That just because you fail doesn't mean you're damaged merchandise. You move on and you become bigger and better. And you are the shining star. You're the shining example of that. So my next question, my final question for you is, what's next for Michelle Bravo?
So what's next? I will continue working as a yoga instructor at yoga studios. And I also work in lactation, but I have my baby new company that is coming. It is called The Nurtured Spirit. And it is all about feeling in order to heal. And it's all about me guiding others in their journey from failure to growth. And how do I do that? I offer one-on-one and group yoga, Reiki, sound healing sessions to help people peel away the layers and find their inner light. I also host corporate wellness workshops to help with team development and to help companies flourish, pouring into their employees, filling up their cups so everyone can get the overflow. And then my big vision with this, and I don't like to attach too much to outcome. Like I practice detachment. That's another thing in yoga philosophy is like you take small steps to what you want to do, and then you see what the universe does for you, right? Like what the universe sends you.
Exactly.
And take it from there. But I have this vision of motivational speaking, public speaking, and which is really ironic because I'm an introvert, but it's really important to me. And also raising awareness for autism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's great. And I applaud all that. And just to let everyone know that I will be following up with all of Michelle's contact information. Michelle, you are, if you're not on it yet, you will be on LinkedIn. You're also starting a website.
Yes, that will be coming soon, both LinkedIn and my website.
Fantastic.
I will share all of the information with you, and that way anyone who needs it will be able to find me.
Okay, so in the meantime, of course, I'll be doing a follow-up post for all social media for Michelle being my special guest, and I will include contact information for her. She's too good to miss. This is so big. I'm so excited. I'm hoping that people who work in business suits or sit around a corporate table listen to people like Michelle. She's so experienced and she's so great at what she does. She was a clinician, but look at where she is right now. And then she's going back to the corporate world, showing them again, mindset is everything. Because as a leadership advisor and executive coach, it's great to talk about mindset and there's courses for that. But look at how Michelle is, she's not going straight through the mindset. She's doing it in a way with movement, which I think is wonderful. I wanted to thank the failure coach, Michelle Bravo, for being such an unbelievable guest on the reLeading podcast. And for taking us inside the world of you and your story, but how you took these different paths that are so unique, but yet applicable to the world, to everyone actually who's watching this or listening to this. I actually wrote some notes this morning that Michelle will show you how, not sitting in a classroom or taking a course, by letting your body and mind do the work, and she will show you the way. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. So in closing, once again, I just want to remind everyone that the most important thing that you are doing in your personal journey or your career journey, no matter what it is that you are doing, be effective at doing that. Just because you're a CEO does not necessarily mean that you are effective in a lot of areas. If you are not a leader, but you're an influencer or an individual contributor, you absolutely have every right and permission to be effective in what you do so that you positively affect other people as you engage with them. So for everyone else, my ask is to make sure that you stay in contact with Michelle Bravo and just go be effective. Until next episode, take care.